my week 3 NBA Power Rankings. Not really sure why there's not any games on today, but it does give me more time to work on this video, so it's not entirely a bad thing. But let's get started. Sorry. Number 30, you got the Washington Wizards dropping 5 spots after having an 0-3 week this week. They lost to the Hawks by 9 without Daniel Gafford. Without Corey Kispert, they lost to the Heat by 7, who also didn't have Caleb Martin in that game, so that about evens that out there. Did lose to the Sixers by 18 points when they did have both Gafford and Kispert. So no excuse for that one, just an ugly loss in there. But they had 2 close games this week, and then 1 blowout game. But still, they were mostly healthy this week and still couldn't get a win. So got to drop them a few spots. Number 29, I got the Portland Trail Blazers. So they did not play bad this week. They actually had a 2-1 week with a win over the Pistons by 9. But the Pistons in that game were without a bunch of players, including Isaiah Livers, Monte Morris, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jalen Duren, and Alec Burks. So 5 really solid rotational players for the Pistons that they were missing, and you still can only beat them by 9 points. And then the next game, they played the Grizzlies. They were without Scoot Henderson, and the Grizzlies were without Derrick Rose, and they won by 2 points. And then they replayed the Grizzlies again, very next game, which I'm not sure why they're playing the same teams twice in a row this early in the season. But yeah, they did, and they ended up losing to the Grizzlies. Scoot and Derrick Rose were also out in that game, and John Konchar for the Grizzlies was also out. But the Grizzlies ended up winning that game by 12. So, they had a solid week, but they also lost Robert Williams. Had knee surgery on his, I think, meniscus or something. Supposed to be out for 2 to 3 months with that injury. So that's mostly why they're going to be moving down a few spots here, because that's a pretty significant hit. Number 28, I got the Charlotte Hornets. They jumped up 1 spot. They went 1-2 this week. They still have a couple injuries with Frank Ntilikina, Cody Martin, and James Bouknight. So 3 different guards are injured for them, have been all season, and are going to continue to be out for at least the next couple weeks as well. But they lost by 9 points to the Houston Rockets this week. They beat the Indiana Pacers by 1 point this week, which was a pretty good win for them. And then they did lose to the Mavericks this week, but only by 6 points. Mavericks were missing Maxi Kleber, but they still had a very close game versus Mavericks, which I thought was pretty good. But also Terry Rozier is going to be out for at least the next 2 games. So that's going to hurt him for a couple games. Yeah, number 27 here, I got the Memphis Grizzlies. So they did actually get their first win this week, which is nice. They went 1-2 on this week, bringing their overall record to 1-6. They had a 24-point loss to the Jazz. They've been missing Derrick Rose all week. He's supposed to miss all of this next week too, probably, which is a little bit of a hit. But yeah, they also signed Bismack Biyombo to help with their big man rotation, so maybe that will do something. But yeah, like I said, they lost by 2 to the Jazz. Then they played the Blazers twice, right? So they lost by 2 to the Blazers, and they beat the Blazers by 12 in the next game without John Konchar as well. But yeah, so not a great week for the Grizzlies. And, Derrick Rose is going to be out for another week, which obviously is not good. Number 26, we got the Utah Jazz. So they're dropping 2 spots from being number 22. They went 1-3 this week. They went 1-3 in the first week and went 1-3 this week. So, yeah, they're going to continue to be dropping a few spots. They played the Grizzlies, like I just said, and beat them by 24 points. They lost to the Orlando Magic by 2 points, who were without Markelle Fultz. So if he was playing, they would have lost by more than two probably. Then they got destroyed by the Timberwolves by 28, and they lost by 17 to the Chicago Bulls. So just not a good week for the Jazz, who are actually one of the few healthy NBA teams and still did not have a really good week. Number 25, I got the Detroit Pistons. So they started off really solid at 2-2. Then they had an 0-4 week this week. But part of that is because they do have an insane amount of injuries. Like Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Livers, and Monte Morris have yet to play this season. Also, in their first game this week, they lost by 9 to the Blazers, but they were also without those three I just mentioned, and Jalen Duren and Alec Burks were missing from that game too. So, even if two of those five players were playing, they probably win that game. Then they lost by 9 points. Without all those same guys, except Jalen Duren did play, so they were still without four really good guys. They lost by 9 to the Pelicans, who were without Zion and Brandon Ingram. So, that game they probably would have still lost if everyone was healthy. But the next game after that, they were without those four dudes. They were also without Jaden Ivey, and they lost by 14 to the Suns without Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. So if they were playing, they probably lose all those games too. But, their last game, they lost by 11 points to a healthy Warriors team when they were missing Jalen Duren, Joe Harris, and then the Bojan, Monte, and Isaiah Livers. So if all of those guys were playing against the Warriors, they probably win that game as well. So they could have easily been 2-2 this week if they were even semi-healthy. And they said that Alec Burks, Joe Harris, Jalen Duren, and Jaden Ivey are all questionable to be playing in this next game. So, they're still without those three guys for a week, and then these other four guys are questionable. So they might be without these guys for another couple games, which is obviously not good when half your roster is injured. Number 24, I got the San Antonio Spurs. They dropped 4 spots. They had a 1-2 week this week. They jumped up 4 spots, not dropped 4 spots. They beat the Suns without Bradley Beal by 11 points, which I thought was, pretty good win for them. They lost to the Raptors by 7 points, but they also did not have Devin Vassell in that game. So if they have Devin Vassell, he'd probably win that game. And then without Devin Vassell, they got destroyed by the Pacers by 40 points. So, not a good game there, but Devin Vassell is supposed to be back this week. So that should obviously help them a little bit. Number 23, we got the Chicago Bulls dropping 2 spots. They are now 3-5 on the year. So the Bulls this week, they went 1-3. They lost them to the Kyrie-less Mavs by 9 points. They lost to the Nets. They were missing Ayo Dosunmu, but the Nets were missing Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson, and they still lost by 2. So I think they should have been able to win that game. They lost by 22 to the Nuggets, and then they finally beat the Jazz by 17. So they had 1 good game this week and 3 not so good games. Yeah, number 22, I got the Brooklyn Nets. They dropped 2 spots. So they did not have a bad week this week. They went 2-2. Without Nick Claxton, Dinwiddie, and Cam Johnson, they beat the Heat by 4, who were missing Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, but still a good win, missing 3 of your better players. And they're still winning. Without Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson, they beat the Bulls by 2 points. They lost to the Celtics only by 10 without Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton, and Cam Johnson. So if all those guys are playing, they probably beat the Celtics, actually. And without those same Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, they only lost to the Bucks by 4 points. So if all those guys are healthy, they're probably winning. They probably went undefeated this week. Nicholas Claxton is supposed to be injured for 6 to 8 weeks with an ankle sprain. Cam Johnson's supposed to be back this week, but Nick Claxton is definitely a hit for your team. Number 21, I got the Houston Rockets. So they started 0-3, and then their second week they went 3-0. So the record is 3-3. Obviously not 0-3. Messed it up a little bit. But yeah, the Rockets this week they played really well. They beat the Hornets by 9 points. They beat the Kings without De'Aaron Fox by 18. And the next game again, they beat the Kings by 25, also without De'Aaron Fox. But I'm still not sure if De'Aaron Fox is going to make up for a 25-point difference. Rockets are also without Amen Thompson for 2 to 4 weeks with a ankle sprain. But yeah, now we got number 20 is the New Orleans Pelicans. They dropped 7 spots from being number 13. They didn't play horrible this week. They went 2-2. They beat the Thunder by 4 without Brandon Ingram. They beat the Pistons by 9 without Zion and Brandon Ingram. And the Pistons were without a lot of players that game, like I mentioned earlier, but still a good win because you're also without your 2 best players. They did lose by 18 to the Hawks, which isn't great, and then they lost by 18 again to the Nuggets. But they were also without C.J. McCollum, and C.J. McCollum he had a collapse lung or whatever, and he had this back in Portland, and he missed about 6 weeks. So we're expecting him to miss around 6 weeks as well with this, which obviously is not, not a good thing for the Pelicans. Number 19, I got the Raptors jumping up 7 spots. They went 2-1 this week, and they played really solid. They beat the Bucks by 19 points. That's obviously really good. They lost to the Sixers by 15, and then they beat the Spurs by 7. So, had a solid week. They've been missing Precious Achiuwa all week, but he's questionable for Wednesday, so maybe they can get him back. He doesn't make too much of a difference, but definitely helps. But yeah, you played a really good game against the Bucks this week, and then not a great game against the Sixers, but still a solid week for the Raptors. Number 18, I got the Knicks. They just dropped 1 spot. They went 2-2 on the week, so not a bad week for the Knicks. Gotta find them. Yeah. So yeah, they lost with RJ Barrett. Without RJ Barrett, they lost to the Cavs by 6. But the Cavs were also without Darius Garland and Jared Allen. So I feel like they should have still been able to potentially win that game. They lost without RJ Barrett. They only lost to the Bucks by 5. So I think if they have RJ Barrett that game, they're gonna win. And then they beat the Clippers by 14 in James Harden's debut. So that was a really solid game. I think if RJ Barrett was healthy, they'd go 2-1 on the week. So yeah. Number 17, I got the Orlando Magic. They went 2-2 on the week. Without Markelle Fultz this week in the first game, they won by 2 versus the Jazz. They beat the Lakers by 19. They were missing Wendell Carter, Markelle Fultz, and Gary Harris. Lakers were without Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, and Jared Vanderbilt. But if all those guys are playing, Magic probably still win that game. Magic lost by 15 to the Mavericks without all those guys that I just mentioned. But Jonathan Isaac, Gary Harris, and Markelle Fultz should be back this week, so definitely should help them. Number 16 got the Sacramento Kings. So they went 0-3 on this week, so not a good showing for them, obviously. But they were missing De'Aaron Fox all week, so you can't be too mad at them. They lost by 1 point to the Warriors without De'Aaron Fox, so if he plays, they probably win. And then without De'Aaron Fox, they lost to the Rockets by 18 and by 25 points. But if De'Aaron Fox is playing, maybe they win. Maybe they win those games. You never know. But De'Aaron Fox is supposed to be back this week, so I feel like they should be getting back on track. Number 15, I got the Indiana Pacers jumping up 3 spots after they went 2-2 on the week. So for the Pacers, they did not have Tyrese Halliburton in the first game, and they lost by 51 to the Celtics. But they bounced back with a win over the Cavs with Halliburton coming back. Then they did lose by 1 point to the Hornets. Then they followed that up with a 40-point win over the San Antonio Spurs. So they got beat by 50 this week and won by 40 this week. So, a little bit of an up and down week for the Pacers, but they ultimately ended on a 40-point win with the healthy Tyrese Halliburton. So I got them moving up a couple spots. Number 14 is the Atlanta Hawks. They moved up just one spot. They went 2-1 on the week, so they had a good week. But they beat the Wizards by 9 points without Daniel Gafford. So Daniel Gafford makes a difference, but I don't think he makes a 9-point difference. They beat the Pelicans by 18. Obviously, the Pelicans have been without like Najee Marshall, Jose Alvarado, and Trey Murphy all year, but I think the Hawks still win, even if those guys are playing. They did lose to the Thunder by 9 points, so not a great game there, but Thunder are, pretty good team, so can't be too upset about that. Number 13, I got the Lakers dropping 2 spots, so they went 1-2 on the week. They got a lot of injury issues. The first game against the Clippers, they won by 5. Clippers were without James Harden and Terrence Mann, but the Lakers were also without Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and Taurean Prince. So just a lot of injuries for the Lakers there. Second game, they lost by 19 to the Magic. The Magic were without Wendell Carter, Gary Harris, and Markelle Fultz, but the Lakers were still without those 4 players I said earlier. But if all those guys are playing, Magic probably still win. But yeah, in the third game, they lost by 1 point to the Miami Heat, who were without Caleb Martin and Nikola Jovic. But Lakers were still without Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Taurean Prince, and Jackson Hayes. So they're missing 4 to 5 key rotational players for them, and the Heat are missing 2. So I think if Lakers are healthy and both teams are healthy, the Lakers probably win that game. But some good news for the Lakers is that Rui Hachimura is supposed to be back this week, as well as Jackson Hayes, and Taurean Prince did come back in the third game this week. So they should only be without Jared Vanderbilt for this next week. So he's still not played this season. It's kind of a problem, but Lakers. If Lakers get healthy, they should be doing better. Number 12, we got the Miami Heat. So I just talked about them a little bit. They've been without Caleb Martin all week. They lost their first game versus the Nets. Nets were without Nick Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Cam Johnson. And the Heat were without Caleb Martin, Kevin Love. So they still should have won that game without him. But they did follow it up with a 7-point win over the Wizards. So I thought that was a good game. Then they did end up beating the Lakers, like I just said. So yeah, number 11, I got the Clippers dropping 4 spots. They only played 2 games this week, which I thought wasn't, I thought they would have played more because most teams played 3 or 4 games, but they only got 2 games this week. So, they got some rest, but they still went 0-2 in the week. When the first game against the Lakers, without Harden and without Terrence Mann, they lost by 5 points. So not horrible, but Lakers were without 4 really key rotational players. So if all of those guys are healthy, I don't know who wins that game. But they did end up losing in Harden's debut by 14 points versus the Knicks. So that's kind of a problem. I feel like you should be able to beat the Knicks. But yeah, that's why they're dropping 7 spots. Number 10, I got the Golden State Warriors. They're dropping 2 spots. They did go 3-1 on the week, but it was a very underwhelming 3-1. They beat the Kings by 1 point without De'Aaron Fox. So if De'Aaron Fox is playing, they're definitely losing that game. They beat the Thunder by 2 without SGA. So if SGA is playing that game, Warriors are definitely losing that game. They lost to the Cavs without Isaac Okoro by 11 points. And then they beat the Pistons by 11, but the Pistons were without Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Alec Burks, Joe Harris, and then Bojan Bogdanovic, Monte Morris, and Isaiah Livers. So the Pistons were without 7 of their 12 best players, and you still only beat them by 11 points. And then you beat 2 teams by 1 possession that were without their best players. So if the Warriors played healthy teams this week, they very well might have gone 0-4. But I don't want to drop them too much because they still did win. But yeah, the Bucks at number 9, so they went 2-1 on the week, but I have them dropping 2 spots, even though 2-1 is not a bad week. But it is, considering they lost by 19 points to the Raptors, that's not a good showing. And then they only beat the Knicks by 5, who were missing RJ Barrett. So I thought they should have beat them by more, and they only beat the Nets by 4, who were without Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton. So even though they went 2-1 on the week, they still had a minus 10 point differential on the week, um, even though they played teams that were missing some of their better players. So not a great performance for the Bucks this week. Number 8, you got the Thunder. They jumped up one spot even after having a 1-2 week, but that's mostly because they had close games and they had some injuries because they lost their first game of the week by 4 points to the Pelicans without Brandon Ingram. So that's not a good game. You should be able to beat them without Brandon Ingram, but versus the Warriors, they lost by 2 points without SGA. So I think if SGA is playing, they're going to win that game. So and then they beat the Hawks by 9 points. So they played good in their last 2 games. If SGA is playing all week, they're definitely 2-1 instead of 1-2 on the week. So that's why I'm moving them up a little bit because SGA is, he played the 3rd game of the week. So he only missed 1 game where they happened to lose. So I don't want to move them down too much because I know if SGA is playing, they're winning that game. Number 7, I got the Suns down 4 spots. So for the Suns, they didn't have the best week. They went 1-3 on the week after starting the season off 2-1. So they without Bradley Beal and Damian Lee, they lost to the Spurs by 11. Even though they only lost by 1 without Devin Booker as well, with Devin Booker they lost by 10 more points, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Then they lost by 12 points to the 76ers. They were without Bradley Beal and Devin Booker that game, so not too upset about that performance. But yeah, then they did beat the Pistons by 14 points, still without Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. But yeah, Devin Booker is supposed to be injured for a whole week this week, which is part of why I'm moving him down 4 spots instead of maybe just like 1 or 2, because Devin Booker's going to be out probably all week, and Bradley Beal's supposed to be questionable for Wednesday, so maybe he'll make his debut. But yeah, without Devin Booker, your team's not going to be as good. Number 6, I got the Minnesota Timberwolves at 4-2. They went 3-0 this week, giving both the Nuggets and the Celtics their first loss of the week. So that's why the first loss of the season. So that's why I'm moving them up 13 spots because they beat number 1 and 2 in the last week power rankings. They beat number 1 and 2 this week. So I thought that was really good. They beat the Nuggets by 21 points. Both teams are healthy. Beat them by 21 points. That's a really good game. They beat the Jazz by 28 points, so that's really good. They beat the Celtics by 5, so that was a closer game. Celtics were also without Derek White, so maybe if Derek White is playing, they win that game. But they still gave them their first loss of the season, and they gave their Nuggets the first loss of the season. So that's why I'm moving them up as many spots as I did. Number 5, we got the Cavs. I'm moving them up 5 spots from number 10 to number 5. So even though they're only 3-4 on the season, I think they're definitely much better than what their record shows. They only went 2-2 on the week, but I still think they're better than what that record shows. Because they beat the Knicks by 6 points without Darius Garland and Jared Allen. Knicks were without RJ, but fully healthy. Cavs winning that game by more than 6. They lost to the Pacers by 5, fully healthy, so that's not great. But they did beat the Warriors by 11 without Isaac Okoro. So I think the Cavs, there's only been very few games where Garland, Mitchell, Allen, and Mobley are all playing. And when they are all playing, they're doing really, really well. So that's why I have them ranked so high, even though they're not particularly have the best record. It's just if all their guys are healthy, they're definitely going to be one of the better teams. And they all are currently healthy. So, they should be doing much better next week. Number 4, I got the Mavs at 4, jumping up 2 spots. They are 6-1, went 3-1 on the week. Beat the Bulls by 9 without Kyrie Irving, so that's really solid. They did lose to the Nuggets by 11, but can't be too mad about losing to the Nuggets. Beat the Hornets by 6, without Maxi Kleba. So, I mean, decent win there. I would like them to win by more than 6, but, not too upset. And they beat the Magic by 15 points, who are missing a couple good players in Markelle Fultz and Wendell Carter. But, 15 points is still a pretty solid dub there. Number 3, I got the Denver Nuggets. They went 3-1 on the week, but I'm dropping them 2 spots from number 1 all the way down to number 3. The reason for that is because of Jamal Murray's injury. He said he pulled his hamstring, and they don't have any timetable for his return. So it could be like 1 to 2 weeks, or it could be 1 to 2 months. We don't really know, but it's definitely going to be at least a couple weeks. So that's it's a little bit scary. But this week they did they went 3-1. They lost to the Timberwolves by 21, beat the Mavs by 11, beat the Bulls by 22. Beat the Pelicans by 18 without CJ McCollum, but they were also without Jamal Murray. So with their one game without Jamal Murray, they still won by 18 points. So, still pretty good there. They're going to need guys like Christian Braun and Julian Strawther to step up. Julian Strawther had 21 points in this last game. So, if you can, do that every week, they won't be missing Jamal Murray much. Number 2, we got the Celtics. I have them staying at number 2. They went 2-1 on the week. That brings the record to 5-1. They beat the Pacers without Halliburton by 51 points, so a really good win there. They beat the Nets by 10 points. They were missing Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons, and Cam Johnson, and they only beat them by 10, so not a great win there. But yeah, and then they did lose to the Timberwolves by 5 points, like I just mentioned earlier. But that brings me to number 1, which is the Philadelphia 76ers. They went 3-0 on this week, and they weren't even particularly challenged hardly at all. They had a really, really good week. They beat the Raptors by 15. They beat the Suns by 12, and they beat the Wizards by 18. So the margin of victory this week, on average, was 15 points. Pretty good performance all around for the Sixers, and they did not have any injuries this week, so that's really good for them. They're looking really good with these new additions following the James Harden trade. They're helping give them more rotation depth and stuff. But yeah, next we'll get into our top performers of the week. So I got a list of 10 players. And just note their notable performances this week. So number 1, we got Wembanyama at 38, 10, and 2 assists and 2 blocks. So, that's obviously really, really solid for any player, let alone a rookie in his 5th career game. So that was really impressive. Jalen Brunson put up 45 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. I believe that was in the in-season tournament game where they still ended up losing that game, but Jalen Brunson balled out in his own right. Nikola Jokic has 2 performances on this list. He had 33 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists on 14 of 16 shooting. So, a very, very efficient near triple-double there. And then he did have a triple-double with 35 points, 12 assists, and 14 rebounds with 1 steal and 1 block. So 2 very, very good games for Nikola Jokic this week. Tyrese Halliburton this week put up 43 points and 12 assists. I believe they also did lose that game by 1 point to the Hornets. I believe that was the game, but it wasn't really his fault that they lost because 43 and 12 assists. Really, really good game. Kevin Durant put up 41, 4, 5 with 1 steal and 2 blocks. So a really good game for him. LaMelo Ball had a 30-point triple-double with 10 rebounds and 13 assists. Joel Embiid put up 48 this week, which was, I believe, the highest scoring game of this week, but still not the highest of the season because I believe LaVine put up 51, and that is still the most of the season so far. But yeah, 48 and 11 with 6 assists is really, really good game. Then Bam Adebayo just last night. I believe Joel Embiid's game was just last night as well. But yeah, Bam Adebayo just last night put up 22 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists. So 20-20 triple-double. It's a really, really good game with 2 steals and 2 blocks. So doing it all on both ends of the floor. And then also last night, Cam Thomas dropped 45 points, with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. It did take him like 33 shots to do that, but he did shoot fairly efficient on 33 shots to get him a good 45 points. I think that's his career high. Yeah, and then Anthony Edwards in the game against the Celtics when he gave them their first loss, he put up 38 points with 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. So good performances all around. And yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts and make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list.